Gertrude Nadine Baniszewski, also known as Gertrude Wright and Nadine Van Vossen, was an Indiana murderer who, with the aid of most of her own children and neighborhood children, oversaw and facilitated the prolonged torture, mutilation, and eventual murder of Sylvia Likens. In July 1965, Lester and Betty Likens, traveling carnival workers, suggested that Baniszewski take their two daughters, Sylvia Marie Likens, 16, and Jenny Faye Likens, 15, as boarders in return for a $20 a week in compensation while they worked across the state. The Likens sisters attended high school and social functions with the Baniszewski children, as well as church with Gertrude on Sunday. However, when the Likens' first $20 payment was late, Baniszewski beat the girls. Shortly thereafter, the girls were beaten for having candy that Baniszewski accused them of stealing. Thus began a regular pattern of child abuse. It seems Baniszewski was described by the Indianapolis Star as a haggard, underweight asthmatic, suffering from depression and the stress of several failed marriages, which caused her to begin taking her anger out on the Likens girls, beating them with paddles as well. In August 1965, Baniszewski began to verbally and physically abuse Sylvia Likens, allowing her older children to beat her and push her down the stairs. Baniszewski also accused Likens of prostitution and delivered sermons about the filthiness of prostitutes and women in general. After the Likens sisters reportedly accused Baniszewski's daughters, Paula and Stephanie, of being prostitutes, Stephanie's boyfriend, Coy Hubbard, and several other classmates and local boys were brought in to assist Baniszewski in beating Sylvia. Baniszewski later forced Jenny to hit her sister. When Likens became incontinent, Baniszewski locked her in the basement and began a bathing regimen to cleanse Sylvia, involving dosing her with scalding water and rubbing salt into the burns. She was often kept naked and rarely fed. At times, Baniszewski and her 12-year-old son, John Jr., would make Likens eat her own feces. Around this time, Jenny managed to contact her older sister Diana, outlining the intense trauma that the two sisters were experiencing and asking Diana to contact the police. Diana ignored the letter, believing that Jenny was simply displeased with being punished and that she was making up stories so that she could come live with Diana. Shortly after this, Diana Likens came to visit her sisters, but Baniszewski refused to allow her inside. Diana hid near the house until she spotted Jenny outside, then approached her. Jenny told her that she was not allowed to talk to her and then ran away. Concerned, Diana contacted social services and informed them that Baniszewski told her that Sylvia Likens had been abandoned for being physically unclean and a prostitute, and that she had since run away. When a social service worker arrived at the Baniszewski home inquiring about Sylvia, Baniszewski told Jenny to lie about Sylvia's whereabouts, threatening that she'd get the same treatment as Sylvia if she didn't. Terrified, Jenny confirmed that Sylvia had run away. The worker returned to her office and filed a report stating that no more follow-up visits to the Baniszewski home were needed. On October 21st, Baniszewski instructed John Jr., Coy, and Stephanie to bring Likens up from the basement and tie her to a bed. The next morning, enraged that Sylvia had wet the bed, Baniszewski again forced her to insert a large glass Pepsi bottle into her vagina, before beginning to carve the phrase, "I'm a prostitute and proud of it," into her abdomen with a hot sewing needle. When Baniszewski was unable to finish the branding, she had Ricky Hobbs finish. The next day, Baniszewski woke Likens and then dictated a letter to her, intended to look like a runaway letter to her parents. After Sylvia finished the letter, Baniszewski formulated a plan to have John Jr. and Jenny take Sylvia to a nearby garbage dump and leave her there to die. When Sylvia overheard this, she ran down the stairs attempting to escape, but Baniszewski stopped her as she stepped out the front door and onto the porch. Baniszewski then pulled Sylvia back inside the house and again threw her down the basement steps and kept her there. On October 24th, Baniszewski came down to the basement and attempted to bludgeon Sylvia with a wooden paddle, but missed her and accidentally struck herself. Coy Hubbard stepped in and viciously beat Sylvia on the head repeatedly with a broomstick and left her unconscious on the basement floor. In the early evening of Tuesday, October 26th, Baniszewski told the children she would give Sylvia a bath, in lukewarm water this time. Stephanie and Richard Hobbs brought Sylvia upstairs and placed her in the bathtub, fully clothed. As they took her out shortly thereafter and laid her on a bare mattress on the floor, they realized she was not breathing. Stephanie frantically attempted to resuscitate her, but Likens was already dead. Panic-stricken, Stephanie told Hobbs to call the police. When they arrived, Gertrude gave them the letter she'd made Sylvia write. Amidst the commotion, Jenny Likens whispered to one of the policemen, "Get me out of here and I'll tell you everything." Her statement, combined with the discovery of Sylvia's body, prompted the officers to arrest Gertrude, Paula, Stephanie, and John Baniszewski, Richard Hobbs, and Coy Hubbard for murder. Other neighborhood children present at the time, Mike Monroe, Randy Lepper, Darlene McGuire, Judy Duke, and Anna Sisson were arrested for injury to a person. During the highly publicized trial, Baniszewski denied responsibility for the death, pleading not guilty by reason of insanity. She claimed that she was too distracted by her ill health and depression to control her children. Attorneys for the young people on trial, Paula was 17 and John Baniszewski 13, Richard Hobbs 15 and Coy Hubbard 15, claimed that they had been pressured by Baniszewski. When Gertrude's 11-year-old daughter Marie Baniszewski was called to the stand as a witness for the defense, she broke down and admitted that she had been forced to heat the needle with which Hobbs had carved Likens' skin, and that she had seen her mother beating Sylvia and forcing her into the basement. In his closing statement, Baniszewski's lawyer said, "I condemn her for being a murderess, but I say she's not responsible because she's not at all here." And he then tapped his head to make a point about Baniszewski's state of mind. On May 19, 1966, Gertrude Baniszewski was convicted of first-degree murder, but was spared the death penalty and sentenced to life imprisonment. Paula Baniszewski, who had given birth to a daughter named Gertrude during the trial, was convicted of second-degree murder and given a life term. Richard Hobbs, Coy Hubbard, and John Baniszewski Jr. were convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 2 to 21-year terms. The boys would spend 2 years in prison. In 1971, Paula and Gertrude Baniszewski were granted another trial. Paula pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and was released 2 years later. Gertrude, however, was again convicted of first-degree murder. She came up for parole in 1985, and despite a public outcry and petitions against her release, the parole board took her good behavior in prison into account, and she was released. Gertrude changed her name to Nadine Van Vossen, her middle and maiden names, and moved to Laurel, Iowa, where she died of lung cancer on June 16, 1990. When Jenny Likens, who was then married and living in Beech Grove, Indiana, saw her obituary in the newspaper, she clipped and mailed it to her mother with the note, "Some good news. Damn old Gertrude died. I am happy about that." Jenny Likens Wade died of a heart attack on June 23, 2004 at age 54. The house at East New York Street in which Sylvia Likens was tortured and murdered stood vacant and run down for much of the 44 years after the murder. While there was some discussion of purchasing the house for renovation into a women's shelter, the necessary funds were never raised. The house was demolished on April 23, 2009. The property is now a church parking lot. Richard Hobbs died of lung cancer at age 21, 4 years after being released from the reformatory. After the West Side Middle School massacre, John Baniszewski, by then calling himself John Blake, made a statement claiming that young criminals are not beyond help and describing how he had turned his life around. He died at the General Hospital in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, following a lengthy illness with diabetes on May 19, 2005, at the age of 52, leaving a wife and 3 children. Coy Hubbard, Stephanie Baniszewski's boyfriend who beat Sylvia and practiced his judo flips on her, had been in and out of prison since his release and was later charged and acquitted of the murder of 2 men. He died of a heart attack on June 23, 2007, at the age of 56. Paula Baniszewski at the age of 17, the oldest of Gertrude's 7 children, received a sentence of 20 years to life for her part in Sylvia's death. The baby daughter Gertrude that she bore while incarcerated was later adopted. Paula unsuccessfully attempted to escape twice from prison in 1971. In 1972 she was paroled and assumed a new identity. She eventually married and has 2 children. Baniszewski worked as an aide to a school counselor for 14 years at the Beeman Conrad Liscombe Union Whidden, that's a freaking long name, school district in Iowa. Having changed her name to Paula Pace and lied to the school district when applying for the job, she was fired in 2012 when the school discovered her deception. The murder charge against Gertrude's second oldest daughter, Stephanie, was dropped after she turned state's evidence against the others. She assumed a new name and became a school teacher. She also married and had several children. The injury to person charges against the younger juveniles, Anna Roth, Sisson, Judy Darlene Duke, Michael John Monroe, Darlene McGuire, and Randy Gordon Lepper were dropped as well. Sisson married and had children and grandchildren. She died on October 23, 1996. Lepper died November 14th in 2010 in Indianapolis at the age of 56. On May 10th, 2015, Sylvia Likens' sister Diana, who now goes by Diana Bedwell, age 67, and her husband Cecile Knudsen, age 79, were reported missing by her son Robert Acosta. Diana and Cecile were gambling at Valley View Casino in Valley Center, California. Surveillance video captured the couple leaving the casino around 2 p.m. by car, but they did not show up at their son's house. Acosta contacted the police and appeared on television news asking the public's help in finding the couple. On May 25, 2015, the couple was found in a remote part of California with Cecile dead and Diana severely dehydrated after surviving on just rainwater and some food. Diana was airlifted to a hospital in serious condition. She told investigators they were looking for a shortcut when they got lost and stuck on a rocked road. Well, if there's such a thing as karma, you can easily tell that they all got their own price. I mean, most of them died of a heart attack. What the fuck, man? They must have really felt bad about what they did. Their heart eventually gave up. Either way, this case is sickening, and I remember watching the movie called An American Crime, which features Ellen Page. She plays the roles of Sylvia Likens in that movie, and it's based on this story. And the first time I watched it, I just felt sick to my stomach. Not because the movie was bad, it's actually really good, but the idea that something like this really happened. This is a real murder case, and the movie showcases basically what Sylvia went through in her tortures and being in a basement and then being tied to a bed. All these weird things are happening in that movie, and it's just fucking disturbing. And it's also fucking messed up that this woman, this Gertrude, let this happen and also was involved in making this happen. And then after a couple of years, she got out of prison, but she died of lung cancer. Well, good on her. And the other children, well, it seems they died of heart attacks and stuff. One of these guys, let me look at it again. This Richard Hobbs died of lung cancer as well, when he was only 21 years old. God damn it, man, I've actually never heard of someone dying that young of lung cancer. Maybe times were different back then, or he must have been smoking for a very long time. He got out of the womb and started smoking straight away. I don't know. Anyways, as always, dear viewer, have sweet dreams.